And therefore, whatever thing that must be done, unless we restructure, the state will continue to call upon federal government, you have increased minimum wage, you have to empower us. I think that is the thing. But the last thing is that if we restructure, we have different federated units, and the reality is that different states may even have their different minimum wage, depending on ability to really pay. But for now, as we are, the ability to pay in the final analysis is dependent upon what we draw from the federal government. These are just some of the contributions.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. That was a very good contribution. Now, those who were, I want to recognize those. And number 1, the sister in green, number 2, the man in red, number 3, the man in brown, number 4. I think we should stop there. Why? Can I call on the dean to make some submission, or after that question? Okay. Number 1, let's quickly come forward. Number 1 should come forward. Number 2, please come forward because we don't have the time. Number 3, please come forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olayeni Richard. Dr. Folawiyo from UI painted a very gloomy picture of increase in minimum wage, which according to him does not correlate with movements in the level of income. But I just want to point out that there are reasons why we are likely to see this in Nigerian economy, given the structure that we have. And one reason is this is an economy that has a very high appetite for imported goods. And so, and we know from our basic economics that import is a withdrawal from the system. And so, what are we likely to see when minimum wage increases? We are going to see more imported goods. I remember before the monetization that people could endure with their rickety cars. But immediately after monetization in 2004, then you begin to see new cars on the road. The implication of what I'm trying to say here is that as long as we as a country shy away from developing,
changing our culture and our attitude towards things, and the fact is, sir, is restructuring truly feasible? How can we go about it? Is it through hard restructuring, hybrid, or a total separation of the country? Thank you, sir.
Number 3, we shouldn't shy away from asking any question, because when you're doing serious thinking, then you need to ask questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Ruth. Sir, from the first speaker, you said that the agitation we experienced over time was because from the beginning there was no legislation to hold that down or to bring about the way things should be done. My question now is, now that there is legislation, like over 3 years now, why are there still repetition of those agitation, and what is the necessary steps they are taking to put an end to that? And also my contribution is that I discovered that sometimes the intellectual mind actually acts based on what we've learned over time. So I want to ask that, when can this issue of the minimum wage review, can it be taken down to the basics, like from the primary school, that we are being told that for us to end this, it is a reward of our productivity, because most of the times, like, it's part of our is a share of the national cake and not a reward for productivity. So when we come to the knowledge that it's a reward for our productivity, when we are in school learning, we learn so that we can add value, so we are worth that amount that is being paid to us. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me call. Okay.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm Kingsley by name. All right. Talking about productivity, my one question still comes to mind. When we're talking about productivity in Nigeria, are the Northerners, are they really productive? Because, yeah, I've traveled to the North. I've seen the terrible lifestyle. Now, but when we look at it in terms of states, how many states makes up the North? And let's look at in terms of allocation, how much is being allocated in the North? But in terms of productivity, are they really productive? That is one question that actually hits me each time we talk about productivity.
Noted.
Talking about Osun State and Oyo State, well, I stayed a large part of my life in Oyo State, and I was surprised when we had the overhead bridge in Mokola. And I was asking myself, what is the essence of overhead bridge in Mokola in Oyo State? As if that was not enough, in Ekiti, I saw another overhead bridge, in fact, much more longer than the one in Mokola. And I was asking myself, what is an overhead bridge doing in a place like Ekiti? Even longer than the one at Oyo State. Now, talking about productivity and talking about growth nationally, I think we actually need to pay more attention to diversification, because that will actually help us a lot. Thanks to the recession that made us more rational and more practical in terms of pumping money into agriculture. Also, sir, for me, I think practically we have just two tiers of government, the federal and the state. I don't think Nigeria actually runs the local government. The only time I remember that I have a local government is only when I want to fill JAM form or I want to fill anything. But I know that we have a local government. Dr. Femi Adesina on his Twitter page last week talked about a large amount of money that will be dispersed to entrepreneurs. And I asked him on his Twitter page, sir, we keep hearing about these billions of naira and dollars. How can someone like me in Ile-Ife access this fund? I think if you actually need to get anything substantial from the federal government and the local government needs to work closely, because we are actually the basis. Now, lastly, a part of the Constitution talk about, it states that the security and the welfare of the people should be the sole responsibility of the government. Now, over time, we've actually seen that misplaced priority is actually rampant or common in the Nigerian government. Talking about, I used the overhead bridges and a lot of elephant projects that we see. We actually see that this is actually misplaced priority. And the issue of minimum wage, as we said, I feel largely we can actually combat this if we pay more attention to the welfare. As at 2017 or 2018, Nigeria's standard of living is about 43.5%. That is 87 million out of 200 million is actually living below the poverty line, which is actually very, very terrible. Sir, talking about accountability of the government, we keep talking about tax evasion. Now, the question that comes to mind is this. Tax evasion might not actually go out of the system anytime soon, because we are not seeing anything substantial. What is the government using our tax for? We only see that they put the signboard, pay your tax, pay your tax, pay your tax. I'm ready to pay my tax. I'm ready to pay more school fees. I'm ready to pay more if I'm seeing something that is substantial. Sir, how can we make the Nigerian government more accountable? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, let me call on one of the union leaders to say something. Can you please come forward very quickly? It will be very, very important to have a contribution from you. Let's put our hands together for him.
Good afternoon to everybody. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, ably represented by the Chairman, Committee of Deans. It would be an aberration if we don't have any input from the angle of the union. And I don't want us to leave this hall with the notion that the labor is not represented. Even though it was part of the comment of one of our presenters, Professor, he was not aware that the labor is represented here, and we should give good recognition to labor movement in as much as we are addressing a national issue that has to do with minimum wage review. So permit me in a humble manner, I'd like to request as a unionist, as a union leader, if you know you earn salary, you are paid for what you do, can we rise up please? You get remuneration for what you do. You are collecting salary, you are a worker, you are a labor man or woman. Can we be on our feet? Please. Some of us are ashamed. Thank you. Great Nigerian workers. So only 3 or 4 people are workers. Kudos. Now, I said that to actually press home something. We are discussing this issue, and it is holding right on our campus. I wonder why my colleagues are not here. I wonder why members of industrial unions are not here. Why people who draw salaries, who are going to be core beneficiaries of what we are discussing, are not here. I actually expected this all to be filled to the brim. But quite unfortunately enough, these are the set of people that will go behind and start castigating. Labor movement is not a group of rabble-rousers. We are not thugs. We are not destroyers of investment of the federal government. We are part and parcel of the Nigerian system. And I'm reaching out to my colleagues, wherever they are, that this kind of a national discussion, we should be part and part of the discussion. Because a communique is going to emanate from this forum, from this summit, that's going to help us in making policies that will advise the federal government on what to do. 3 presenters have presented their papers to us, and I have jotted so many things that I'm going to relate back to the Nigerian Labour Congress leader. He is not here. The NLC president is not here. He loved to be here. But unfortunately, Yoruba parlance says, if a tree falls upon another, you first of all take care of the one on top. There is this crisis in Abeokuta. Some labor leaders were sacked, and there is going to be, they are there to stage a protest against the government. And that supersedes coming down here. But that notwithstanding, the man is rest assured that he has his foot soldiers on ground. There is no industry you go to, there is no establishment you go to that you not find labor representatives. So labor is here, and we are going to relate everything that happens here back to them. Now, straight to my comments. In the Republic of Benin, those of us who speak a little of French, they say manger pour lait. That is, chicken are fed only to lay. When you feed your chicken, the end result is your egg. You get the egg. So personal emolument in terms of our salaries, it is only made to take care of us. A professor once told me in my faculty that you are not expected to build a house from your salary. You are not expected to marry a wife. You are not expected to rear children. It is your personal emolument. And sir, Prof, sir, that is why Labour will continue to agitate for this national increase in minimum wage. It is our right. When I contribute, when I work for the country, I must be paid. That's an incentive. But unfortunately, to counter that, let me say something. I was privileged to be in a country, in a civilized country. My fellow research friend told me, I asked him, I said, Robert, what are you going to do after graduating from this program? He said he was not coming to school to read, to secure government employment. What do you plan to end up as? Hunter. To start hunting game, killing theirs. I said, with your degrees? You know, it is amazing, it is surprising. Here in Nigeria, everybody believes that once you graduate from a university system or polytechnic system or college of education, the end result is go and get government job. Now, all our presenters have not, they are silent about one aspect that I like